Since I now have pretty much all the amps used on Queens of the Stone Age album Songs for the Deaf, I wanted to try to recreate some of the sounds one to one. And a sound that has intrigued me for a while, despite being a bit different from the rest of the guitar tones on that album, is the tones on No One Knows, especially the verse parts. It's a cleaner tone with less mids than usual and with a very weird and snappy character. So what do we know about the recording process of this song? Well, Eric Valentine, the producer of the album, released a detailed video on YouTube a while back going through the tracks that he was a part of recording. The video was taken down because Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age didn't want to have that info available to the public, but whilst looking for very illegal things on the dark web, I was able to find a copy of the video. Without revealing too much information about the recording process, the guitar stuff goes something like this. It has two main rhythm guitars playing through the intro, verses and the chorus. They are driven but not a whole lot. The left guitar is most likely a Tubeworks RT2100 head. And the right guitar is most likely a peavey standard 260 head. The chorus part has two additional guitars created by the use of 3 amps. These sounds are more driven. The right side overdrive guitar is most likely an Ampeg VD40, and the right side is most likely a combination of an Ampeg V4B and a Gibson GA20. The Ampeg VT40 sound is also used for the first 4 chords in the intro. A bunch of different cabinets and speakers and mics were used, and since it's difficult to find any good info on those, I will use the stuff that I have in my studio. I do have stems from the recording, so let's go! I started with the left main rhythm guitar, the one recorded with the Tubeworks. I initially hooked my Tubeworks up to my HH Electronic 212 cabinet with Fane speakers. That didn't sound quite right, so I quickly moved over to my barefaced 212 Uprising. It has Celestion G12M65 creamback speakers in it, and Josh is known for using Celestion G12M70s, so I thought that could be a better match, and it was. I placed an Audio-Technica AT4081 ribbon mic close to the speaker, slightly on the side of the cone, and that sounded really bad. I moved the mic, I changed the mic, it all sounded really bad. And Eric Valentine has stated several times that it was really hard to find good tones for this album due to the weird amp choices. And I could start to feel that frustration myself. From photos of the session, you can see that a lot of the cabs are mic'd from a distance. Everything from 10 to 70 centimeters approximately. So in pure frustration, I put up a mic around 30 centimeters from the speakers without believing it would help. I don't know what 30 centimeters is in the Imperial system, maybe something like half a mile. And the mic was pointed somewhere in between the 2 speakers on the cabinet. I also added a Lute LCT 440 Pure that I used as a room mic around 7 miles from the amp. Doing that, I got a lot closer to the tones that I was looking for, but moving away from the amp made me lose a lot of low end. Part of the reason why I stopped recording from a distance, because I used to do that before, but I was able to counter that problem with more volume on the amp and more bass on the amp, of course. At this point, I was around 80% maybe, close to the original left side guitar tone. I then used the tone match feature on FabFilter Pro Q3. It analyzes the original guitar tone and creates an EQ curve that gets you even closer to the reference sound. And even though that got me really close, I used the information from the EQ plugin to dial in my tone even closer. I didn't want the EQ to do all the work for me. I used an EQ pedal for that and the controls on my amp and a tiny mic placement adjustment. Then it was time to do it all over again for the right side guitar. I initially wanted to use my Peavey Musician 400 for that part, but I had some issues with mine when I was about to record. Luckily, I also have a standard 260, although the PA version. It's insanely loud, but it has the same character as the musician, and to my knowledge, the same character as the standard 260 guitar head. I could tell though that it had too much mids going on, and that was something that I was able to control with my musician. Since it has a mid knob, the standard does not, but I was able to tame the mids with an EQ pedal. I ran it into my HH cabinet as I found that one to work better for this sound. I mic'd it up with a M160 ribbon microphone, approximately from the same position as with the first setup. The amp was disgustingly loud and I was still missing some gain, so I decided to add a Timmy before the EQ pedal. I used that to push the front end of the amp a bit, shaping the tone, and to add some gain from the pedal as well. All of this proved to be a lot harder than expected, and I hadn't even started the hardest part, and that was playing the song. It seems to be a very straightforward riff, and it sort of is that, but the performance is extremely good. And since there is not that much gain to hide behind, it took me quite some time to get a good track down. Then I had the two main guitars. Time to add the first overdrive guitar to the chorus. For this, I used my Ampeg VT40, and I know from experience that this amp is really difficult to mic up, so I decided to use my Torpedo Live with some IRs that I bought a while back. The IRs are of a EVM 12L speaker that I know works really well for this sound. I used my Boss SD1 to push the amp. Overall, this tone was much easier to get than the first ones. And for the second overdrive track, I also used my VT40. I don't have a V4B, which is the bass version of the same circuit, but they are fairly similar. I was using a different IR. That's what helped me. I used one from a bass speaker, and I was able to get a really raunchy tone that was very similar to the original one. I also felt that I didn't have to think about the Gibson GA20 since I already had the definition and mid-push that I needed in the sound already. And voila! I had recorded all the guitars that I needed. I didn't do a lot in post to the guitars. I added a tape sim plugin since the album was recorded to tape. The guitars are compressed really hard. I only used plugins that are stock in Logic for that. I did some fine tuning with EQ, and for the room mics I also added some reverb since my room isn't exactly that big and interesting sounding. So now it's time to compare my guitars to the original ones. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. Yeah. When I do videos like this, I always get a bunch of comments from people saying, why would you copy someone else's sound, find your own tone, etc. And to that, I always say the same. First and foremost, it's fun. I do it because it's fun. It's fun to research and track down gear and to dial in iconic guitar sounds. It's fun for me, and I think it's fun for you to watch, it seems like. And secondly, I don't do this to copy the whole existence of the band and its songs and to make my own music trying to be them. I think most people would call me out if I was just a blatant copy of the band. But there is a whole lot of learning by stealing and copying. For example, I would have never used any of these amps and recording techniques if I didn't do this experiment in the first place. The mic from a distance thing was a huge eye-opener for me, and I learned that by doing this. And next time I'll record some guitars for my own project, I will most likely do that, but probably with a different amp, a different guitar with a different tuning, and I really doubt that I will ever use the exact same setup as I did in this video. But if I do, I'm also pretty sure that it will sound different from the Queen's record anyways. And I'm pretty sure that Josh ended up using a lot of these amps because he got the ideas from someone else too. I'm pretty sure that I've seen that, yeah. YouTube is recommending a couple of videos for you right here. Please check them out. Thank you for watching this one, and goodbye.